How y'all doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Blessed. Cannot complain. Cannot complain. Mr. Henry, I like that HBCU shirt right there.
Oh yeah, got to represent. Shout out to the Rattlers who are on all day.
Rattlers. Hey, I love it. I love it. I definitely got love for my Rattlers. Lincoln University, first HBCU in the building.
That's what's up.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. And then we're just waiting on Cindy to come on, and then we're going to get started. But thank you, gentlemen, for coming out here to speak to us today, and being able to pour into us. We really do appreciate that.
Thanks for having me. And like you said, shout out to IO. Shout out to you. You the hostess with the mostest. I want to know where I can book you for the for the next panel I'm on. I'm a required. Kofi has to be the moderator for the next panel I'm on.
Oh wow, I love that. Hey, we can definitely make that happen. We'll talk offline. We'll talk offline. Right now, I'm gonna do my job. It looks like Cindy will be coming in just a few moments. So if y'all don't mind, I will go ahead and get started with y'all, and then we'll let her jump in.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. So, gentlemen, tell us about your background and what brought you into the tech space, and we'll go ahead and start with Willie.
Yeah, thanks so much. So, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Willie Henry, pronouns he, him, and his. I am a manager at Netflix on the inclusive recruiting programs team, supporting our product organization. And Darrell, it's good to see you again, too, brother. By the way, we got a chance to speak at a prior event, so it's great to be on the panel with you again. And plus one on that energy, Kofi, definitely killing it.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
So Sure thing. My background, just quickly, is mostly spent in HR. I spent most of my career, probably about, 15, 20 years at this point, so around there, in a number of different roles across HR, mostly on the university recruiting side, and then also within a number of different diversity roles across several industries, banking, the consumer product goods, services industry as well, too, and then, of course, tech. And so I've had a chance to bounce around across industries, different locations across the U.S. and do a lot of great work for a number of different companies. And for me, how I got into tech was, quite frankly, through networking. I was here in Atlanta. I'm based in Atlanta, by the way, fully remote, and got a chance to connect with a really dope brother who had these connection points to all these tech recruiters. And he would always send out this email thread with like, hey, Facebook is hiring and other companies are hiring. And I happened to reach out to the hiring manager through that email connection and got a chance to actually join Facebook before joining Netflix, getting into tech. And so that's how I got in through networking and connection. And it's been a great journey thus far.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And Darrell?
Hello, everyone. Darrell Booker, Corporate Affairs Specialist with Microsoft in our Philanthropies division, leading a lot of our racial equity work as it relates to tech acceleration in the Black community. And I think as we talk more, I'll tell you all more about that. But for me, getting into tech, I guess, was just in my DNA. I was always kind of a geek, a nerd at somewhat of an early age. And back when being a geek wasn't cool. So I hit it a lot. But for me, it was just, at the age of, 12, 13, got that first computer at home and was just on it and just doing stuff and just knew from the very beginning that, that was kind of my passion. That's one of the things I talk about with a lot of people who are, looking to get into tech. There definitely, there has to be a level of passion for whatever part of tech you're getting into. I know it's a very, exciting career path and, very lucrative. But I think one of the, the biggest detriments someone can do to themselves is getting into tech and they don't really have that true love for tech. And just kind of following what everybody else does. So, so I mean, for me, like I said, it was just in me. And then just immediately was just, looking for jobs right away that was, anything to do with tech. For me, it started off on the help desk, help desk, answering calls, and just kind of just progress from there steadily.
I love that. I definitely think that's a great point there. Don't do it just because it's the thing to do. Everybody's getting into tech. Find what's in you and then find how what's in you can fit into the world of tech, because tech is in everything.
Exactly.
Perfect. And Cindy, thank you for joining us. And we started off right here. We're glad to have you here today. And we're starting off with the question. Tell us about your background and what brought you to the tech space.
Yeah, thank you. So glad to be here. My deepest apologies for my tardiness. So embarrassing that the person from Google can't figure out their own tech. I swear I was here the whole time. I just couldn't get in. And so, wow, please don't hold that against Google. It's just a me issue, not a Google issue. But so thank you again for having me. So yes, I'm Cindy Lowe. I actually also had kind of a non-traditional pathway to tech. I started my career in Teach for America, actually. I was a middle school special education and math teacher. And then I transitioned to high school and then guidance counseling. And I actually had a connection within Google. And so that's eventually how I got here. So it was through a connection. And I thought, well, this could be a fun challenge. So I kind of joined the tech space, joined Google without really knowing too much about what I might be getting into, and then saw some great problems to solve and had some great coworkers to do it with. So happy to be here again. Thank you.
Love that. Love that. And we're happy to have you here. And you're not late at all. We can't start the show without everybody here. So we are right on time right now. And we're going to jump into the next one. So this next question is share some of the work your respective companies are doing to promote diversity and inclusion in tech. And we'll go ahead and bounce that to Willie.
Yeah, sure thing. So there's quite a few things that we're doing at Netflix in regards to promoting and advocating for diversity and inclusion, both internally as well as externally, in regards to the work that we do. And so I want to start quickly with the when you think about the company itself and the product that we produce, particularly content, just trying to make sure as we continue to serve amazing content around the world to so many members around the world, we want to make sure that that content is reflective of the world, right? So we think about the diversity of people, the diversity of stories, the diversity of content creators. Like there's an intentional focus on ensuring that that diversity is there, but also creating that inclusive opportunity. When you think about, how do we make sure this work is going to provide a variety of content options, if you will, to make sure it can relate to whatever your story may be, if you will. And so we're doing a lot of things to ensure that we are having that reflection on stage and within the content you're viewing. And ensuring by doing that, what we're doing is, of course, internally ensuring that's also reflected, right? When you think about a diversity of our people. So we're continuing to make sure with the work that I particularly do is really focused around recruiting underrepresented talent, being very intentional about tapping into organizations like Techsgiving, shout out to Ayo and the team, and then other organizations, Latinas in Tech, Lesbians Who Tech, Afro Tech, the list goes on in regards to ensuring that we're investing in these underrepresented organizations to share these stories, right? Talk about the work that we do, talk about the opportunities, and ultimately we hope to be able to influence you to work through our interview process and ultimately land that opportunity at our company. So there's a number of things we're doing, but mostly I like to share, really it's about meeting people where they are, right? We're in this virtual state. It's not as easy as it used to be, and so we're doing a lot of work virtually just to connect with amazing talent. And in many ways, quite frankly, I'm happy because, you don't have to do so much traveling. And we can definitely just get up. Everybody can log onto their laptop and enjoy the event. So that's really cool. So that's some of the things we're doing. I could more than happy to share more details at a later point.
Appreciate that. Definitely love that. Yeah, and meeting people where they are and letting the room on the inside reflect what content you're putting on outside and reflect what's going on in the world. I definitely love that. All right, and we can go to Cindy.
Awesome, thank you. And just to echo some of the things that you'll probably hear today, I think that Google also is invested in making Google internally look like the world externally. So that's a huge motivator for us. And some of the things that we do currently that I would encourage everyone to check out is we do try to hold ourselves accountable. I know that we know that we're making progress, but we're not there yet. And so one of the ways that we do hold ourselves accountable is by publishing our diversity annual report. So you can check that out through our own website. That has a lot of good stats and figures and some more information that we can delve deeper into either outside of this or maybe later if there's time. But that has some great resources there to check out. But we do invest also in the early career portion. So investing in the beginning of the pipeline. So creating those tech careers for students, potential students, people even just thinking it over. So I heard that earlier in the text giving chat, like empowering youth to pursue tech. So that's definitely a big thing. We invested heavily in HBCUs, HSIs, other universities, other non-university programs as well, because we know that a university path is not for everyone. So that's just a small amount. I'm sure I didn't even scratch the surface, but I do know that it's definitely top of mind and something that we are continually striving for.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love that. And Darrell?
Yeah, I mean, similar to kind of Cindy, Microsoft has a long ways to go, as a lot of tech companies do. We took kind of a multi-pronged approach because I think it's important to, look at when you think of the D&I topic, how does that correlate to, within your walls as an organization, but then outside. So, with Willie rocking the HBCU shirt, one of the things is definitely for us is having, better relationships with HBCUs, recruiting more Blacks. There's definitely an initiative to even have more within leadership. But also when we look at other things such as diversifying our suppliers that we have, and then not only diversifying them, but also making sure that we have equitable spend across those suppliers. As we start to look out into the community, providing capital to minority-owned banks. Because oftentimes within the community, you kind of shop and bank, all in one place. So, the ecosystem that you can, you kind of uplift by providing that capital. Working on the digital divide as much as we can. It's a tough thing for anyone to tackle in terms of broadband and devices, but at least focusing in some urban cities and trying to address the topic of affordable broadband and affordable devices. Ensuring that our computer science program that's in high schools is equitable in terms of the high schools that those are in. Traditionally, they were not in the underserved community, so really focusing on that. And then a couple areas that, people really don't think of Microsoft. We have a Justice Reform Initiative that's working on things such as, police diversion and prosecutor reform. And then the work that I lead, which is focused on the tech acceleration in these underserved communities through a lot of the nonprofits, i.e. text giving, just to make sure that they have everything that they need from an organization to be able to have the highest impact on their mission. So trying to tackle it inside our house, but then also focusing and saying, okay, what can we do with our brand and our reach outside? So I'm actually going to drop in the chat kind of a link to a website that kind of talks about some of the things that I mentioned.
Perfect. And thank you for that as well. What I love about all three of your companies is, and how you guys presented, was it wasn't focused on wearing a t-shirt or what type of content you're doing for the community. It was really focused on investing, whereas you might be investing by giving some opportunities to people from underrepresented communities, but it's investing in the sense of, even if we can't get them in our doors, we are going outside to make sure that we are investing in these communities. So I definitely love that and wanted to give you guys your flowers, your roses for that. Now, stepping into the next question, what do you believe are some of the most misconceptions professionals have about working in big tech companies as it regards to diversity? And we're gonna go right back to Darrell with that one.
Yeah, you saw me get in on that one.
I saw you.
I think the biggest misconception is that you're not welcome. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of time people don't even try to get in certain big companies because they feel like, I'm not what they're looking for. And I think that's, where you can, be a real detriment to yourself, especially, if we think about, companies' goals and, they are, trying to, their consumers are diverse. So therefore, it makes sense. You should have diverse people within your walls. And I think, slowly but surely, as generations kind of, new generations are coming into tech, and you have older people who are kind of, funneling out. I think there's definitely a huge momentum right now for decision makers and hiring managers that they're looking for, as diverse people as possible. And I'm not just talking about gender, race, but even when we think about, those that may, have certain disabilities and things, because accessibility is really important. So, even if you have somewhat of a disability, you also have a place at a lot of these tech companies.
Definitely love that. Definitely love that. All right. And we're going to go to Cindy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll try and go with something different. I think that something that comes up, and it's potentially just like clearly a myth out externally, but I think something that pops up a lot in conversations is that this idea of a pipeline problem, which very clearly there is not. So I think that that's a big myth or misconception that I'd love to bust, that clearly the talent is there. There's more of an access, an opportunity issue, as you've discussed. So I think that's the big one for me.
Love it. All right. And Willie? Willie? Is he frozen?
Can you hear me okay? Sorry, I did freeze for like 10 seconds of Cindy's, I'm sure, fantastic response.
No worries.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so plus one of what both Darrell and Cindy said, I think those are really, really important misconceptions that need to be debunked quickly. And also, I would just add on that I believe that there's this misconception of not having power at these companies. Like, you are empowered at these companies, working for these amazing tech companies. Like, whether it's through your ERGs or if it's through just your role and responsibilities, and or your ability to have a voice and be able to provide feedback to your colleagues. Like, you definitely are empowered. You have that power to be able to help influence these companies now as well as in the future. So I think that's something that a lot of times we think we need to be all the way at the top. We need to be at the leader level, if you will, to actually make a difference. Like, no, you can make a difference in any role that you're in within these companies. It's just a matter of how do you apply yourself and not being afraid. Be bold, take risks, and you know your stuff, know your data, back up your facts with information, and just push the company forward. So I think just the empowerment piece is something that is a misconception, but you definitely are empowered.
Love that. Love that. And I would like to empower everybody that is watching this right here to ask questions. So we're going to do Q&A. This is for y'all. We're going to do Q&A in a bit. So if you have any questions, please start placing them in the chat. And then I'm going to, go ahead and take off my Q&A hat and put the Q&A in you all's hands. So the next question for me, though, I'm going to ask a couple more, is what do you see as the future of diversity and inclusion in the tech space for your respective companies? And we're going to go ahead and go to Cindy for that.
Awesome. Love it. So we have some hard set goals at Google for the future. So 2025, not that far away, unfortunately, the way that time keeps moving. So I'd love to share those with you. They're also available in that diversity annual report I plugged earlier. But just generally speaking, we do have some targets, some goals to hit that we would like to increase our representation by 30% across all historically underrepresented in tech groups. And I think that what stands out to me in terms of that specific goal is to also mention, to Willie's point too, is to get more folks into leadership positions. So our goal is to have a 30% representative leadership force within Google. So I think that that's a really good number to hold ourselves to. And I think that, again, going back to the accountability notion, the fact that we publish these numbers and that we're constantly sharing this information will hopefully hold us accountable to make sure that we're continuing to make that progress.
That's good. Yeah, I like that number. I think that's good. And I think that's also very realistic. Change takes time. It's baby steps. So I think 30% is good. All right. Does anyone else want to touch on that question, or should we move on? Good.
I'll just,
Willie, you go.
Yeah, just really quickly. I mean, we probably share similar aspirations and goals across the board. I'll just say, again, for Netflix, because I know it's called out for the other companies, we also have an internship program. We're also investing in new grads. The company has historically only hired mostly experienced hires. And so that is, I think, the future for us is just bringing in these new, fresh perspectives into the company. So, you're going to see more of that investment on campus with underrepresented talent. So really excited about just really bringing in some new perspectives and obviously grooming and developing those individuals for those future leadership roles in the future as well.
Perfect. Love that. Love that. And
I'll just add real quick, just, things I mentioned earlier, but I think overall, just, maybe, I don't know how, I think us as a company kind of, showing the community in the world that, hey, this is just not a middle-aged white male company. And I think maybe historically that has just been, the impression of a Microsoft, not only from the standpoint of who's employed there, but also who uses the products. And I think that's a real focus on, a lot of people, including myself, with just, starting to, make connections and just say, hey, we are for the culture as well. So I think that's something that you will see. And as the more we do that, back to the earlier point, I think it, kind of removes some of those walls and barriers and people saying, you know what, maybe I can work there. Maybe they do want me. So.
Perfect. I love that. Love that. All right. So we have oftentimes when diverse professionals break into tech, they don't stay due to the lack of feeling a part of the company culture. In your opinion, what are some elements that can enable diverse individuals to have longer, more enriching tenures with their companies? And whoever wants to take that one, go ahead.
I mean, I'll jump in real quick. I think that may be a little bit more on the companies than it is the person. I mean, the person can, definitely, once you get in, do your internal networking, of course, try to find those mentors, try to find those, people that you somewhat can confide in. But, personally, one of the things I see with a lot of companies is, maybe at kind of the middle management level, they're not providing or they're not making those really inclusive environments. I think from the top down, there's probably no CEO, president, board of chair that doesn't want, an inclusive environment in place. But, true for the fact, I think a lot of times every person in the manager position, their thinking isn't there yet. And oftentimes they're the bottleneck. So I think the onus is on these companies to not just, here's this mandate, but how do you really make sure that everyone within the organization, is really following what you want to do in terms of making a, welcoming and inclusive environment.
Thank you for that. I think that was spot on. The onus is definitely, I think, on the companies to create the space. And sometimes you might not know, but that's when you ask questions to the people that are like, entering the company of what do you need in order to feel like you have a safe space within this company. Does anyone else want to touch on that one?
I could just quickly jump in real. Oh, sorry, Cindy, go ahead.
No, you can. She said you could go, so we'll go Willie then Cindy.
Okay, I tell y'all, my Wi-Fi it's Friday, y'all. The Wi-Fi just doesn't want me to be great. But plus one of what Darrell shared, but I would also say with the company, right, they need to invest in like career programming, right? So how do we continue to help sponsor amazing talent, give them access to exposure, raise them for visibility when it comes to leadership opportunities, make sure that, if there is imposter syndrome, hopefully none of you are having imposter syndrome, but if you are, how do we shake that through creating a stronger sense of belonging and community for you? Like those are important things that also need to be provided by the company and supporting the career growth. And so I wanted to make sure I called that out as well too, that there needs to be some intentional career programming as well to identify those gaps as Cindy highlighted, for example, with leadership opportunities and creating programs to try to plug underrepresented talent into those opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll piggyback on that because I was going to mention career growth. It's not just getting folks in the door, but then how do we keep them? How do we grow them? How do we make sure that there are opportunities for success? So I know Google loves to look at data. So some of the things that we've seen is that we do need work in our retention and our progression efforts. And so that is a concerted effort for us. And then I think just like on an individual measure, I agree with the points made too, that it's not up to the individual, but we do have great employee resource groups, ERGs, that people can take advantage of to find kind of their people, find their niche within a large company. And I just last night was taking a quick look at how many folks at Google internally participate in an ERG. And of an approximate 100,000 person workforce, about 40,000 participate in an ERG. That blew me away, that about 40% of the company participates in an ERG. So great opportunities there to get involved and invested. And then like echoing the sentiments that really relying on the company to provide opportunities for growth, opportunities for development, opportunities for progression.
Could I say one more thing real quick?
Come on in.
I love those points that Cindy shared. I think the one thing that we haven't called out as a panel is that you also have to make sure you're showing up, like with your impact. You know, you're delivering results, you're showing your Black excellence, Latina excellence, however you identify excellence, basically every day in your role. And don't be quiet about it. Like make noise, shout it out, you know, make sure that your team, your leadership, folks outside your leadership know about your work, because I also think that helps, right? You got to be able to sell and promote yourself too. And I think you know, that's one thing we can't forget about that. Some of that is on you as well, with showcasing your impact. Go in there and deliver those amazing results that'll help grow your career as well.
Yeah, let me jump in. I agree with that 100%. You know, I see too many people coming in and kind of just flying a little bit under the radar. You know, be vocal. You know, bring that right passion. A lot of times you have lived experience and you're a subject matter expert in certain areas, so people are looking for what you have to say. And honestly, you know, I think this pandemic hopefully helped a lot of people to maybe come out of that shell, because I feel like, you know, being virtual levels the playing field a little bit. No more of those, you know, secret conversations in the kitchen, or, you know, the small group going to lunch and then excluding certain people. So, you know, for those that have been, you know, that are in tech and kind of been fortunate to have a job during this time period, like this is really a time that I think to really excel and show who you are.
Great points all around. Do y'all think that like what causes that has something to do with imposter syndrome? You get into one of these big companies and you're just like, okay, I'm at, you know, Google, Netflix, Microsoft, and you just kind of fly under the radar.
I'll just kind of, yeah, but you know, I think maybe a little bit of that cause maybe a lack of confidence and maybe some of self-worth and knowing who you are. And I understand it's a progress for everybody. You know, everybody's not going to be at that stage coming right out of college and can be that. So you know, find what it is that really makes you confident. You know, part of the issue is sometimes people are getting into roles that they shouldn't be in. So so naturally you start to fly under the radar, because I don't want to be exposed because I shouldn't be, you know, I did great at, you know, fooling them on an interview and saying that I know skills, but this isn't really what I'm supposed to be in. So, you know, that's something for me. I always tell people, like, I've never been nervous for an interview because I never went for a job that I did not feel 1000% confident about. And I think if you kind of have that approach as you're looking for the role and as you enter in the role, that will kind of, kind of limit the amount of impostering you do.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That I definitely needed that rebuttal. Does anyone else want to touch on that? Like maybe how they combat imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I'll take on just a little bit of it too, because when I came to Google from even teaching from an education background, there's just such a collaborative nature that I wasn't expecting. And so what I would encourage folks to do if you are experiencing imposter syndrome, or even just like, I'm unsure of how to do this, is ask. I've never felt like one of my coworkers didn't want me to be successful, because me being successful doesn't take away from their success. So it's all just a really great collaborative team atmosphere. So I guess that's one thing I would leave folks with too, is just don't be afraid to ask questions, you know, tap a mentor, reach out to a team member, get the help or assistance you might need, or help you get through that learning curve.
For sure.
Yeah, I would plus one that, Cindy. I think that, you know, and going back to the ERGs, like they were a big part of my journey. You know, I worked again here in Atlanta before going to the West Coast. Very much a different atmosphere. I was used to the head nod and the head nod back here in Atlanta. Got out to the West Coast, head nod, and wasn't getting the head nod back. And I was like, what the hell is going on? What did I get myself into? You know, and so um, figured out quick that I needed to find the ERG, you know, and so in my case, found the Black Act community, got a chance to build community there, moved over to the diversity team and start, you know, figuring out ways to how do we connect people as they come in because we don't want them to fall into imposter syndrome. So one plug is for Ayo, for example. He used to work at Facebook and he was part of my Black App mentorship program that I created there, you know, and he was my mentee, by the way. And so connected him with other colleagues and we created circles and just like really trying to help build that confidence, that shaking that, you know, potential, not saying he had imposter syndrome, maybe perhaps others did, but just making sure that you knew you belong is really important. So I just, you know, think finding your community quickly wherever you go to work is important. You know, it definitely is a safe space for you as well.
Love that. Love that. So the tools are all out there for you all, and you guys found a great community in text giving, and you all are a part of our community. So of course you get to ask questions as well. So we're going to go ahead and transition into Q&A. Thank you guys. You all are doing an amazing job, and thank you for being so open and, you know, clear and articulate through all of your answers. So we're going to go ahead and transfer to Q&A. I think we have about 3 to 4 questions right here. So just give me just a moment. Okay, so we have a question from, let me see. Okay, we have a question from Lukeman. So Lukeman said, why is it that most big tech companies don't follow up with mails, especially during recruitment process? At least they need to keep in touch with their applicants to let them know their fate. So I guess it's talking about like keeping in touch via email or LinkedIn throughout that process.
Oh, Darrell, go ahead.
I don't have facts on this, but I would just say, you know, I think the number of roles that a single recruiter is kind of trying to fill, it's, you know, I think most recruiting departments are probably, you know, understaffed, you know, compared to the amount of people who's trying to, you know, get in. So I think that is just something you have to deal with any and everywhere, any industry. You know what I mean? So that is just, you know, you putting your best foot forward from the very beginning, the application, the resume, the cover letter, the, you know, reaching out to someone in the organization, asking for referrals and, you know, just casting a wider net, you know, especially organizations like ours, we got hundreds and, you know, we got thousands of open jobs. So, you know, instead of just looking at that one and you may not be getting a response, you know, apply for a few others. And one other thing real quick, just, I mean, it's the truth of the matter, but just so y'all know, oftentimes there's jobs that's put out externally, but someone internally is already really tapped for it. So it's just them going through the process. And unless you are like, you know, a superstar, rock star, they're probably not even looking for someone external. So again, just it's a numbers game. The more you apply for, the more your chances are.
Yeah, and I was going to jump in from a recruiting perspective since that's my job function. So my responsibility to each candidate I work with is to tell them the outcome. I take that personally. So I hope that I never leave anyone hanging without knowing where they are in our process. But it is an individual issue too. You know, we're all human, and so maybe something slipped. So I definitely don't want to make any excuses for my recruiting partners. But hopefully you're hearing back regarding an outcome because you invested time in us. And so the right thing to do is to invest the time in you and telling you what the outcome is. However, on the other flip side too, is we see millions of applications for roles. So you might not get a personalized outreach for just an application. But if you have started in the process and you've had an interview, you've had a phone call, then the least we could do is follow up and let you know the outcome.
Great points. Willie, did you want to touch on that? Are you good? Y'all good? Okay, cool. Great points, guys. And Lukeman, I hope that question was answered for you well. Now, this is from Anonymous. Are there specific programs for mid-career professionals looking to pivot into roles within your organizations? Okay, specific programs.
I don't know if we have, again, for Netflix, we don't necessarily have like career programs. I mean, we have new grad program that we're rolling out, but not necessarily mid-career. I mean, we just hire directly for experienced hires. So anybody who's already working right in the workforce, right? Probably 3+ years of experience. We definitely are looking for you as far as our opportunities across the board. So nothing as far as like career programming. If you're looking for like a rotational program or something like that, we don't necessarily have that, but we definitely have direct hiring opportunities that you can apply for, of course, and be considered for.
Yeah, same for us. No particular program, but I think what comes in mind for us is maybe looking at saying, okay, let me go get one of the Microsoft certifications. So, if you're already a developer, you're already a cloud architect, you're already in networking, etc. Going and going through the workshops, the classes, or if you're good enough, just go straight to taking the test and getting that certification. That does wonders when applying. So that will kind of be my advice for someone that's already kind of mid-career.
Yeah, I love those points that you all brought up too. And I guess for me, the answer kind of depends on the career path that you're trying to target. So we don't have any that I can think of specific programs to target a career pivot. However, I do know that we also value like non-traditional backgrounds for tech. So if you went to a coding boot camp, for example, that's a great way to pivot in your career. I don't know when people take that on, but I actually had someone that I was chatting with who was like a concert violinist and then decided to go through a coding boot camp and then initiated the process with Google. So it's never too late if it's any role really, but that's one way I can think of to pivot to tech if you are thinking it over. And then myself, I mean, like I shared at the beginning, I pivoted career-wise. There is overlap between recruitment and teaching, I think. But there are opportunities to definitely break in.
As you all can see, there's opportunities to break in through all three of these companies. Just make sure that you prepare yourself for the pivot before working the pivot. I think that was my takeaway from that. We have another question from Anonymous. How would you recommend asking about DEI in the interview process? And
I'll jump real quick. I mean, you can ask about it, but maybe that's one of the things you can do your own homework. As Cindy mentioned, they put out their diversity and inclusion report. I know we as Microsoft have. I know Willie. I know they have. I mean, everybody does that. So I think that's something you kind of do as your homework. Maybe back to what I was talking earlier. If you have the opportunity and you're actually interviewing with that hiring manager or that group, actual kind of specific questions as to, to get a feel of, inclusivity within that particular group and role that you're working with. Again, you're going to be able to read about what the company is doing, but you want to know what's happening in that area where you're working. So, I tell people a lot of times when you go to these interviews, you should be interviewing the company as much as they are interviewing you. So if you're going with that mindset, you can get all the answers you need before you accept the offer or before they even offer it to you.
Big gem.
I love that. I mean, obviously you would want to make sure before you join a team that you're asking the questions that would matter to you if you're going to be working there. And then just to add, I think the only other thing is ask your recruiter. At Google, we have programs where we can arrange chats with members of our ERG if that's something you're interested in, connecting with a Googler. So you can hear it from someone who's participating in maybe an ERG that you would want to join or you'd think about joining. So there are other opportunities to get even more knowledge.
And Kofi, I'll just add real quick. I think you can still get at getting insight into diversity and inclusion efforts through your questions, general questions that you may ask. So how do what's your strategy around developing your people on your team? Like, how do you promote, your colleagues on your team? What are the opportunities to get involved in activities outside of the company? So like, there are questions you could throw in there that may not be directly DEI related, but they are DEI related in regards to how you approach it. Taking in that information, as both Darrell and Cindy said, from the inclusion reports, the diversity reports, from the information you research, if you will. So there's some slick ways for you to get that in there without necessarily worrying about that being something that might be a flag or backfire. Because, there is bias that exists. Let's just be real. So you got to be careful in regards to some questions you do ask in the interview process. Just keeping it real.
All great points here. Essentially, do the research. This is like dating. You should be dating your opportunities and figure out what that person or what that job opportunity is about before you go ahead and dive into the interview process. And when you get into the interview process, if you have more questions, then find a smooth, covert way to just like ask that question. Now we're pretty much getting wrapped up here. One person did ask a question, which will just lead us out. Danny Denmark asks, what is the best way to follow up with you all after this session? So we'll start with Cindy.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. You can find me on LinkedIn. So this is Cindy Lowe. And then if you'd love to follow up with me, I don't know if this is appropriate, but my email at Google is my first and last name @google.com. So go ahead. But bear with me because today we're technically off and then we're heading into a weekend. So might be quite a delay on getting back to you. So LinkedIn or email.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And for me, same thing. LinkedIn, Darrell Booker, IG, Twitter @Darrell Booker. Hit me up, and we can chat. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much.
Yep, and LinkedIn for me, I did drop it already in the chat. So if it's there, you'll see it there. Willie Henry Jr. That's me. Definitely reach out to me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you there as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And apparently the last question is, are y'all hiring? So if you guys would have shout out if you're hiring and then go ahead and give last words, we'll go ahead and end with that.
Always. The door is always open at Google. We're always hiring, specifically always software engineering positions. I feel like that's just a constant churn. So definitely.
Perfect. Love that.
Real quick, same thing with us, always hiring. I mean, go to careers.microsoft.com, search for any term you can think of, tons of job. The one thing I'll tell you real quick, I tell a lot of people a good entry level, not only to tech, but in Microsoft, there's a role called a customer success account manager. If you have some customer service skills, and even if you just have a little bit of tech skills, you can really thrive in those roles. And I looked the other day, and there's 1,700 of those open right now. So that is a really big role for us as a company globally. So
thank you so much.
Yep, and plus when I threw in all caps in the chat, yes, I mean we definitely are. And I will say, and this is probably true for both Google as well as Microsoft, a lot of roles are also remote. And that's a beautiful thing when you think about, again, leveling the playing field. A lot of jobs that are remote out there now, you don't have to necessarily move to the West Coast. You can stay here in Atlanta, or you could be in Chicago or New York, wherever you're located. So definitely check out the opportunities on our job site as well, too. And, if you are looking for remote opportunities, I'm sure all three of our companies are probably very much open to remote opportunities as well.
Perfect. Thank you all for sharing, and thank you all for taking the time to speak with everyone today and pour into us once again. Everyone, please show some love for Cindy Lowe, for Darrell Booker, for Willie Henry, for all taking the time to pour into us and give you all the knowledge and let y'all know that they are hiring. So connect, and if you're going to DM them respectfully, and let us and we are going to continue to have a great rest of our day. Once again, thank you all, and y'all have a blessed rest of your day.